The world of vintage watches creates an incredible opportunity for us as consumers to get some timeless pieces. However, it can be really overwhelming to navigate and know where to look to buy. What is going on, everybody? My name is Teddy Baldassarre, and in this video, we are going to be discussing the best places to buy vintage watches. So where to buy vintage watches is one of the most asked questions on this channel. So I wanted to make a video highlighting 10 places where you can go to look to buy. I've not purchased from all of these places, but they have developed reputations in the watch space where I feel comfortable in presenting them as great options. If any of you have had experience with any of these brands or brands outside of these mentioned here today, please leave them down below in the comments. I'd love to hear any stories or other places that you would recommend people to go buy vintage watches. So guys, without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So just a couple things before we dive in. One, I want to address, just like every watch purchase that you're making, you want to make sure that you're doing your research. It is incredibly easy to get burned in the world of vintage watches, but the world of vintage watches also can be a blast if you do your homework and buy from a trusted dealer. Before I suggest any online shops, I want to first address eBay and Chrono24. So as someone who is an average watch enthusiast, but not a vintage watch expert by any means, I usually stay away from places like eBay and Chrono24. Don't get me wrong, it would be very ignorant for me not to mention both eBay and Chrono24 as places to look to buy watches, but you just have to be extra careful. As a buyer, you do have protection buying through both of these sites, but there is a lot of sellers on there that are not as trusted as others would be. If you're going to buy on these sites, be sure that the seller has a positive reputation and several reviews. Personally, I would always rather pay a little bit more to get a watch I know is coming from a trusted dealer and I know exactly what I'm getting for the money that I'm paying. So guys, let's jump into it. And the first one we want to address is one of no surprise. It is Hodinkee. I think Hodinkee's kind of moved away from selling vintage watches. They've really become just more of a media outlet for watches and all things surrounding it. But they are also a great reference for looking at vintage watches. It is hard to get your hands on any of their vintage pieces because they have such a larger following that they sell very quickly, and they're just really not pushing the amount of watches that even a lot of other dealers that I'm going to be mentioning here are. However, they have an amazing archive. If you're trying to get a sense of what watch you want to go after, this is a great place to reference. Next, we have Theo and Harris, and if you have watched any watch videos on YouTube, you're probably familiar with Christian at T&H. I've actually interviewed Christian on this channel before. I will link to it in the description down below if you do want to check it out. So T&H, I've actually done multiple transactions with them, so I can talk firsthand. Christian there has an incredible enthusiasm for watches. He's been able to list some amazing watches. It's really interesting for me too over the last couple years following him just to see how much he's grown in the watches that he's offering up there. I'm actually wearing a Rolex 1601 that I purchased from him on my wrist currently. They have a great content library of videos on their YouTube channel, as well as they release watches on their shop every Tuesday. So definitely check them out. Next, we have Vintage Caliber, and they've kind of become one of my favorite dealers to watch on Instagram, especially. They're actually located over in Munich and started back in 2014 with a focus on a younger audience of watch lovers just entering the world of watch collecting. However, they've really branched out since then and have listed some of the most stunning vintage pieces that I've seen online. Next, we have Vintage Vision, another brand that has a great Instagram presence and definitely would want to recommend checking that out. It's a great way to keep on top of their new listings. They are located in the UK and originally started strictly selling vintage Omega, but have gradually ventured out. They have a great listing of watches and really a great place to look if you're looking for that first solid vintage piece that you want to add to your collection. Now heading far east, we're going to take a look at Vintage Concept. Vintage Concept is actually located in Hong Kong, and I know some people freak out when they hear anything is coming from China, but they have become really well respected in the vintage watch community. They sell primarily vintage Rolex, however they also sell Patek Philippe, Panerai, and Tudor as well. So although I've not purchased any watches from this shop, I was incredibly tempted to do so on multiple occasions, and I've exchanged messages with the founders of it, and they're always very helpful when I was inquiring about a watch, and that is Omega Enthusiast. So I believe this site might have some of the most beautiful Omegas on the internet, but they're not just Omegas that are completely unobtainable. They specialize in that 1,000 to 3,000 price range, and although Omega is their specialty, they also offer Tudor, Rolex, Longines for similar price points. So that person that might be looking for that first solid vintage piece, this is a really interesting place to look. Some beautiful Omega Seamasters, Constellations. This is where you'd want to go if you're going to be looking to buy one of those. Next, we have a dealer that I have purchased a watch from. It was actually my Omega Constellation that I have featured in several videos here on this channel. I absolutely love it, and I also love Analog Shift, the dealer that we're going to be looking at here. So Analog Shift is a small company based in New York City, and they possibly have some of my favorite collection of watches. They have a very vast price range that they offer in all of their watches. I think they are probably the second heaviest hitter next to Hodinkee. They also have a very robust archive of watches that is a great way to get lost in and just learn more about vintage pieces. So next up is Second Time Around Watches. They are based in Beverly Hills, California, and have been selling vintage watches since 1976. I took a look at their inventory and I was just blown away at the amount of watches that they had. Dozens and dozens and dozens of brands that you can check out, have great listings, and also have some pretty obtainable pieces that you can check out. So if you want to exclusively look at Rolex watches, here are two places to check out. One is, of course, Bob's Watches. So you're definitely paying a little bit more when you're buying from Bob's, but you're getting a trusted seller, one of the biggest players in the space, and also have a great reference, even if you're not buying, just so you get a better understanding of what's out there, what you want to look at next. They also sell Tudors, but Rolex is really primarily what you will see on their site. And now lastly, we have 10 past 10. So this brand is backed by one of the most well-respected enthusiasts in the space, Eric Koo. Eric has been featured on Hodinkee's Talking Watches and is also the owner of the Vintage Rolex Forum. They sell some of the most coveted Rolex models on the internet and is a must to check out if you are looking for a vintage Rolex watch or aspire to buy one in the future. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you've had any experience with these dealers, I'd love to hear that experience in the comments below. If you've purchased from other dealers that you've had a great experience with, also leave comments about that. And then in addition, what is your favorite vintage watch and what are you looking to buy next, even if money wasn't an option? Let's throw it out there. I'd love to hear your comments down there. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe. Also hit that bell icon so you know when I release new content. YouTube actually changed their terms of service when it comes to subscribers and what content they see. So to make sure that you see the content, hit that bell icon. We talk fashion, watches, and everything in between on this channel, and I would love for you to join us here. So guys, until next time, be well, and I will see you all very soon.